Awesome. Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in just about a minute. Give some more people some time to filter in. But thank you very much for joining us for our 34th episode of our Power Lunch. We'll be covering some DIY aspects of your account configuration, paperless parts. I'll introduce myself in another minute before we get started. Well, it's 12:01. My name's Parth. I work on the TIS team at Paperless Parts, so it's my job to configure accounts, especially for customers in new implementation, and really customize Paperless Parts as a platform to work for you. And one thing that I really tried to hammer home with our onboardings is the different parts that you're able to configure yourself in terms of account maintenance. And I think it's a perfect topic to talk about in a power lunch to give everyone a little bit of a refresher and cover off some new things that we're talking through in terms of account configuration. I've been told I talk fast, so I'll try to avoid doing that for purposes of our call today. Um, so on our agenda, we've got a couple of my favorite parts of the platform to configure. Customizing your custom tables with a little bit on the Paperless Parts API, how you can interact with your tables through the API, and how you can extract information and pull information out of Paperless to integrate with your tech stack. Customizing saved views with a little flavoring of customizing some workflow steps. Awesome things to have in terms of streamlining your quoting workflow overall. And then talking through some email templates that we've released a couple of new feature updates for our email templates that I'd like to talk through, and customizing your communication with your customer. And then there's going to be some time for Q&A. It would not be a TIS-led webinar if there wasn't a demo, so I'm happy to get my hands dirty and get right into it. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to be working within my own paperless parts environment. I'm looking at a quote, and I wanted to talk first about our custom tables. So custom tables are a really, really helpful aspect of our account configurations. I use them all the time. A really good example of this is with me selecting a process, as we always do at the start of a quote, and then selecting a material type. Let's go with 3003 aluminum. Um, After I click this update button, you'll notice that I'll get costing for almost everything in terms of this account. So I've got some runtime estimation, I've got some setup time estimation, and my material costing. The reasoning for that is largely through custom tables. So if I open this up, I've got this material selection table. It's titled my material table, and I'm able to, look at the different rows of data that I'm working with here. This is, of course, driven from a custom table, and I'm able to do a good amount of automation in terms of, automatically selecting the pricing units, populating my sheet cost, some of the stock variables here. And I'm able to grab things from tables such as, our material cut rate for our laser. I've built in some logic to filter through the appropriate material type, material thickness, grab our appropriate material cut rate, and then some more complicated stuff surrounding our runtime per bend in my bend operation over here. As well as, this isn't technically a custom table, but it is referencing a table, your purchase components table, this hardware insert operation to account for a PEM insert that goes into this bracket. And I mentioned that these are driven from custom tables. These live within the configure tab over here in the table section. And you'll notice that I have a number of different tables. I've got bend times, laser cut rates, and my material costing. The reason that I call this a DIY aspect of your account is I can build logic in to reference the data that's within your custom tables, and you're able to maintain these easily and relatively in a relatively familiar workflow. So like with my materials costing table, if I were to want to download the table and then change some data, upload it, say, for example, I've got a different gauge of 3003 aluminum sheet with a different cost I wanted to account for. So in this case, maybe it is 60,000 aluminum sheet. And we are getting it at, 415 a sheet. I can simply interact with this. I don't have to code at all. I can save the data that I just customized and then re-upload it back into my table. I'm using this actions button over here. And it'll really allow me to dynamically change and alter the data that I'm looking at in my custom tables, in my account configuration, and interact with it at the time of quoting. And this is true for all of the different tables that live in paperless. So I use this for material costing. I can change the laser cut rates. So for example, if I get a new laser with a higher kilowatt hour wattage, I can, upload a new thickness. I could upload a new cut rates table. I can re-reference any of the data in here. Say, for example, after we've done some testing, we realize that our bend times for our stainless steel at different thicknesses is different. It allows your account configuration to be a lot more dynamic at the time of quoting. And you're able to interact with your quotes, with low code changes, much, much easier. And something that a lot of our customers take advantage of, in terms of your onboarding with Paperless is a integration with an ERP system. So things like your materials costing table, your maybe your labor rates, for example, those will all sync automatically with Paperless. But if you don't have an integration and you'd like to update those custom tables on like an automated basis, or other aspects of your paperless account, one fantastic resource that I love accessing is our Paperless Parts API reference. So through the Paperless Parts API, you're able to update some of the data that's in your account configuration, as well as pull key information about your quotes, your orders, from Paperless Parts, and really use it to, keep your account updated in a less manual approach. So getting rid of that actions update workflow that we were talking about. And also further integrate it into your tech stack. So a great use case for this is to develop to the Paperless Parts API endpoint, to connect it with like a CRM software that you guys might have. Or if there is like a format of data visualization that you use outside of the analytics tab in Paperless, you're able to yourselves actually develop to this endpoint and pull the information that you're looking for. So there's all sorts of different resources in here. One example that I can demonstrate for you is like, for example, quotes. We were looking at quote number 42 in Paperless, and let's say I wanted to get the details on that quote so I could visualize it somewhere else or feed it into a CRM software. So you're able to access this. This is just an example, but I'm gonna, try it out. I'll paste my authorization token in here. You'll need an authorization token to interact with the Paperless Parts API. If you'd like to get that exposed in your account, just contact support. We'll be able to get that up and open for you. But it'll allow you to pull quote-related data, order-related data, and design webhooks and other technical solutions to pull and push data from your Paperless. Look at that. I replaced my auth token with a copy and paste for a material record. But for example, a number of different example responses are like this. So all the sorts of different types of information that's related to a quote. So quote number, account, unit price, of course, the materials, etc. Whatever information that you're inputting into your paperless quotes, you can take straight out of Paperless Parts and pass it to another software in your tech stack to integrate Paperless Parts pretty seamlessly in your overall business workflow. I think this is really, really useful, and it's very, very it's a very useful tool to utilize in integrating paperless further into your tech stack. So that sort of covers some of the during the quoting stuff that you can customize in your account. I think that the next thing that I'd like to talk through is one of my favorite things to customize in a customer's account: your workflow steps. So at Paperless, we really strive to drop down your time in quoting and make you more accurate via your account configuration. It's very, very simple during your onboarding to develop your rule sets and in your operations and processes. But something that we also look to and strive to do is streamline your workflow, right? There are so many steps in terms of risk assessment reviews, in terms of passing information from areas within your organization to other areas of your organization, that you can really streamline within Paperless. And one of my favorite ways to do this is in your workflow steps. This is a feature that is, offered based on the tier of your subscription. If you're interested in this and you don't see this in your account currently, feel free to reach out to your CSM to discuss how you can get this added. But what it really allows you to do is fully customize your internal workflow within Paperless between order received or RFQ received straight out to order sent out. And all of the different teams within Paperless that you guys have sitting within your workflow are able to interact with workflow steps. So on my available workflow steps, I've got an initial assessment, labor, the labor and the inside processing, material costing, outside service, request for quote, and peer review, for example. So if we go back to our quote number 42, you'll notice that on this line item component, if I look at my status and workflow steps, I can see that I've completed my peer review. I've completed my labor, I've completed materials, but I've listed my OSV RFQ on hold. So say, for example, this piece is going to get a powder coat. I still need to go to my powder coat supplier and get a RFQ for this. I can obviously use a custom table, select my desired vendor, get a good lot charge, but I still need to get my piece prices, right? Um, Another DIY approach that I usually use in tandem with workflow steps are our views. So, in tandem with workflow steps or aside from workflow steps, views are a fantastic way for you to visualize the information that's within your Paperless Parts account and really compartmentalize it and only who needs to see what you're looking at. So, for example, you can do this based on the overall quote, and you can also do this based on the line item. I've got some line item views listed here. Say, for example, you wanted to create one. We can do one example for like if I was an estimator, right? My name is Cameron Schaafstall. I only want to see the components that are assigned to me. It's not really useful to me to see all of the outstanding quotes that are within the Paperless Parts account. So I'm going to say the estimator is Cameron Schaafstall. One of our project managers here. He's my estimator in my account. And I'm going to call this a private view. I'm going to say Cam's quotes. So this is going to show me only the quotes that are assigned to CAM, right? And I can customize all of the different fields that will show up in this workflow. So I don't really need the, RFQ number. That might be customer supply. It's not really relevant to what I'm looking for. But I'd really like to see due date so I can prioritize my quotes a little bit better. So I'm going to stick this up the top over here, right after my workflow steps that'll show. I want to see the line item status. I want to see the overall quote status and the parts description, the quote number. So if I create this view, it'll show only for me because this is private, but it'll show me all of the different quotes that I still have to work on. The quote status, the line item status, whether or not I've started it, if it's in progress, where it's at in our custom workflow status. And it's just a really nice, helpful way that I can individualize my paperless experience. Say you wanted to do this at the team level, right? You wanted to see whether or not what is outstanding in terms of where you need to get your RFQs from your outside service support. I've got this line item view. This is a public view, so everybody in the team can see it, and I can see all the part numbers that require RFQs from my outside service vendors. So I can see the different statuses. I can see that, this is in progress. Everything else is done. We just need to get our outside services for this. And I can simply go and access that specific line item on the quote so that I can go input my piece price and get my work done. This really helps concentrate the available information to only the stuff that's relevant to me. And that this is, relevant at a team level, from a line item perspective. But what about quotes that need to hit management review, right? Say, for example, I've got a rule set at my facility that says, every quote that's over, say $250,000 needs to hit a upper level management review before we send it out, just to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. I can create views at a quote level status. So same exact workflow. You'll name it, set it public or private, and pick the columns that you want. I've got my management review quotes listed as so we can see the price here is $48,368,000, $250,000. These are the heavy hitters, right? What I've done to make these accessible to this piece is using the priority tag. Tag them as priority number 10. This is what we're working on. That's like the highest priority. And we need, our managers, our upper level management, they don't need to see every quote that we're working on, but we do want to flag some things. So I clicked the priority tag, I tagged it as number 10, and I created that view to, really base out an internal workflow and make it easier for our managers and our management to see only the data that they need. Now this has dozens of different applications, right? You can really customize exactly what these views can mean to you, how you'd use them, and using them in tandem with workflow steps, we can really streamline the experience that you guys will see within Paperless Parts. So that'll sort of help you guys move quotes through the pipeline. Another nice new feature that our product team released that I really like is our communication templates. So in paperless, it's no surprise that you're able to, or no new factor that you're able to go ahead and customize different email templates. But something that we've done over the past month or so is in your account settings, in your email template settings, you can actually set default email templates now. So say I had multiple different email templates. I've got this general one, and I've got one that I send to my A&D customers that are maybe a little bit more high touch. And right now I've got this set as my default, but I can really easily select between them to see which email template I'd like to populate most often. So when I'm working within a quote, I'm able to go ahead and, when I'm finalizing the quote, my default email template, the one that I just set as the default email template, the general one is the one that shows up by default. I can still select the quote sent template for my A&D customers. This is a little bit more high touch. Maybe they have a relationship with the estimators and they'd like to contact them specifically about certain things. The verbiage is a little bit different. But I have been able to select a default one. I can make multiple. Perhaps you have A&D customers or specific high touch customers, customers that you have agreements with, LTA agreements with that need different verbiage. It's just another aspect of paperless that you can really configure and bring back to personalizing your communication with your customers and really making it a time-saving aspect and also standardize how you outreach to your customers. And say I wanted to change that default from my general template to my A&D template, I would simply come over here, select the set as default quote template checkbox, and save that change. Now, when I come back to my quote, if I refresh my page and hit that finalize quote button one more time, my A&D customers template comes up. And this is one of the categories of our templates that you're able to customize. We have, a multiple different templates, one for order shipments. So say, for example, you'd like to make multiple templates for your order shipments. You got your general one, you got one for specific customer types, specific outreach. You're also able to customize that. I think this is a really nice quality of life update. I really like the approach that our product team is taking in terms of helping you customize how you talk to your customers. It's so important to maintain those relationships and really standardize the approach that you take there. A couple of other nice to have features that I've seen, DIY customizable come out over the last couple of months is, for example, date formatting. A couple of the customers on the call today are likely in Canada or some of the other countries that Paperless Parts currently works with. And some things that we'll see is like date formatting. You're able to select the date format that you'd like to see your quotes come out with, and really customize sort of how your quotes come across. And another aspect of customization that I really, really like to work with is our digital quote settings. So like all work that you're doing for your parts, for your customers custom, you're able to customize, how this work comes across. You can show part file names. You can choose to select whichever ones that you'd like, and whichever ones that you would not like to send, and further customize that customer communication. Um, Overall, there is several different areas that you're able to customize within your account configuration, right? Working on the TIS team, it's something that I've been doing over the past year, mainly in this configure tab, but there's so many aspects of this these workflows, these different aspects of the account that I feel like the customer can really take control of and take the brunt of the work for, and you can then have the keys of the account in your hands, which I really think is valuable. I think that that covers it in terms of the content that I wanted to share. I'd really like to open up the floor and talk through some Q&A questions using that Q&A feature on the webinar and answer any questions that you have about customizable portions of the account, what we've talked about today. It'd be great. Feel free to utilize that Q&A section and submit some questions. All right. I've got one here that's asking, so the first question I've got is, can I set up an email template that includes several different email addresses for a specific customer? I have one customer that I always have to manually add two additional email addresses to. So the way that those email templates work when you're referencing specific customers is we'll look at the contact's first name, last name, and email address. You can only select one contact on the paperless email in the current state. So if you had multiple emails that you'd like to send through automatically, you would have to add those in manually. But thank you very, very much. Um, Oh, and this is a great question by Michael in the chat. Will you be able to watch this over? Yes, you absolutely will. This is a recorded session. You'll be able to find this. We'll be sending this out over the next couple of days, and you'll also be able to find this on our website. Thanks very much for that. The API tab that I used was different than what you see in your paperless. Is there something I can access in my account? So the API tab that I was using, in specific, was actually not within the actual paperless application, but it was within this API reference documentation. So this is a public resource that we have called docs.paperlessparts.com. This is our API documentation specifically. There's also an excellent resource on the knowledge base. If you look up Paperless Parts API, look at the streaming API documentation. This can cover how to, make some of those API actions like webhooks and stuff like that, and allow you to get some more detail there as well. Thank you very much. That was a great question. Let's see. Can we attach additional attachments when sending a quote? So through the digital quote, the aspects of the configuration that we saw or that you can check off are the digital quote attachments that you can send when sending a quote. So by default from the digital quote attachment, no, there is not. But thank you very much for the question. Can each user have their own email templates? That's also an excellent question. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. You can. So to actually configure that, what I would do is I would come back to my paperless account, go back to my settings tab, my configure tab, come to my email templates down here, and click into like any of these templates. If I quickly just send quote template and say, for example, this is parts template, you can tag them with each individual user and then customize them to have, the estimator's name, email, the salesperson name, email, or whoever's using it. So absolutely you can. You can have one general one that, covers off the overall approach that we should take. Thank you very much for the question. Would you mind explaining how to set up for if quotes need to be approved by someone before sending out? I absolutely can do that. Let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. Sorry for giving you guys some whiplash between stopping the screen share and sending it out again. So the way that I went and configured that within my account is I utilized this priority tag and a rule set that I determined internally. So I said, with my management review quotes, I only want priority number 10 quotes to be the ones that are selected. The priority tab is something that might not exist in all the accounts. You can feel free to reach out to your CSM or support to get this added. But I said, for example, when I select priority 10 on this dropdown, I wanted that to hit my management review rule set. And it could be a number of different things, right? You could edit this filter or edit this view to really select and look at the different options that you want to look at. So maybe it's specific accounts, it's a specific salesperson that works with specific accounts that's coming out of a specific facility. The rule set is for up to you to develop. It can be as complex or light as you'd like. And I just came up with a simple example that I wanted to use for the purposes of this webinar. Thanks very much for the question. That was a good one. Can you attach files to purchase components? This way, when you add them in another quote, it'll display the print and slash or geometry. So you can attach files to purchase components. They might not show up on the digital quote unless the purchase component is the only piece that you're sending out. So the file thumbnail that we'll send out on the digital quote is typically the primary file that's on a line item. So that might be why you're not seeing them when you send them out on the digital quote. Next question up is, I gave an example of adding a new thickness to my aluminum pricing config. What if I have multiple size sheets? I would like my system to pick a specific sheet size as a standard. How can I point it to the standard part number and bring it into the pricing? That's an excellent question. So I actually structured my materials table in a very ideal way to pull the sheet geometry, the stock geometry of the sheet into the material operation that I was working for. So in my material costing table, I've got this material length, material width, and material thickness columns. And when I reference this specific part number, so based on my filter criteria, I was looking for specifically sheet that was 3003 grade aluminum. I pulled the material length and material width from this table itself and then pulled that into my material operation. So it's absolutely possible to do so. We might need to work with support or work with your CSM to walk through a goal set and how you'd be able to approach that. But it's definitely a doable in your paperless configuration. Let's see here. At Power 2025, there was talk about being able to send a quote level RFQs from the chat as opposed to part level. When will this be coming out? Great question. I'm happy to sync with the product team to see what their timeline looks like on this feature. I'm not specifically sure at this current moment, but feel free to reach out to your CSM and talk to them about that if that's a feature that you're looking for. I'm sure they'll be able to provide you with the product team's estimated timeline on the roadmap. Is it possible to customize the dashboard based on total costs? Is there a field for costs? Also a great question. When I was actually coming out with the dashboard that I was working with, I noticed that that wasn't a field that was available, which is why I used the priority tag. It's possible to do so from a line item level. So you can look at it from like overall price as a visible field, but it's not something that I believe you can filter by in the views. I might be wrong about that. Let's see. Price, nope. Cost. I don't believe so, but by using like the priority tag, for example, you can determine different cost floors and ceilings that you'd like to build into that rule set. So thank you very much for that. Let's see. Any suggestions for the best way to approach integrating with our real-time pricing dynamic model? The model has an API endpoint. I'm working with someone on the paperless team to build it out, but I'm curious if you have any additional insights or if I've done something like this before. So I definitely have worked with the real-time pricing. I've worked with it for purchase components. I've also worked with online metals. So like our materials integrations. They're absolutely there absolutely is a good way to do it. If you're currently working with a paperless resource, I'm sure that if you're working with your CSM and support, support asks come to my team as well. So a TIS will be happy to assist you in that endeavor. Thanks very much for the question. Is there any way for the quantity to show on a quote when we make a quote a no quote? That's also an excellent question. No quotes are something I specifically have handled in a different way. Um, let me let me see here. I believe I'm still sharing my screen. I think I turned my screen share off there for a second. Sorry about that. What I've done with no quotes in the past is I typically add a process for no quote and then a reason. Um, and then say, for example, unsupported material. When you no quote a part, I like to tag a no quote process to the part. So that way, when you look at it from the analytics dashboard and look at you can filter based on the process and you can look at your different no quote reasons. If you tag a process specifically to an account, or a quote rather, then it'll show up with the different quantities that are on the part that you've no quoted. It's an excellent question. Let's see if we can get through a couple more here. Is there a pricing difference for API access, and is there a limit to the number of integrations we can use? So there is a limit to the number of integrations that you can use, and I don't believe that there is a pricing difference for API access, but I absolutely could be wrong about that. The API token, so like when you're working with an integration, there is usually a cost associated with that. If you're developing to the endpoint, I don't think that there's a pricing difference. I would absolutely reach out to your CSM for a firmer answer on that, though. I apologize if I missed this since I joined late, but is there a way to create a generic work center that's comprised of a group of work centers? For example, one group of milling machines and one group for small CNC. Yes, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite ways to utilize custom tables. So in my, actually, that's how my milling operation works. So I use one milling operation for my three-axis mills in my demonstration account. And I use this machine capabilities table to actually go select the specific types of mills that I use to work with. This is some demo data. So I've got like, three axis, four axis, five axis mill, for example, lathe, Swiss turn. But I usually have like one machine assigned to the capability. So if it's a horizontal mill, it's a vertical mill, and then let you select the actual type of mill based on the table. So that's a great question. And this is a great use of custom tables. So very on topic. Thank you very much. See if I've got a couple more here. Can I set up an email template that sends the quote to an internal person, i.e. an estimator wants to send to an account manager? That is something that I would actually use a different feature in Paperless for. If you wanted to send quotes between multiple different users within Paperless, what I would recommend using is utilizing our chat feature. So we've got an internal chat feature that'll show, for example, on this part. If I wanted to send this specifically to an account manager, say I'm the estimator in this case, I can open up the chat, the team chat, and then tag a teammate to the chat. So right now, Cam is my only teammate here, but say Cam is our account manager in this case, and I can communicate with them. Hey, take a look at this quote before I send it out. And I can actually tag them on specific line items, on specific quotes, so that they can get notified about things. And then the benefit of using the internal chat feature is that it gets saved to the part record. So if you ever quote this part again as repeat work, you'll be able to have this history captured here. Great question. Thank you very much. Let's see. I think I have time for one more here. Would quote level RFQ include ability to select parts with given service like anodize and automatically send all those prints and associated quantities? That's another great question. I think that I can happy to sync with my product team to see what the intended use case is for this upcoming feature. I don't want to lead you the wrong way and give you an answer that I'm not super confident in. So I'd be happy to reach out to your CSM and let them know what that question is. We'll be happy to sync with the product team and get that answered out for you. Thank you very much. I think that's all of the time that we had today. Thank you very much for all of the questions and for your attendance. We really appreciate all of you guys making time in your busy days to come watch me talk about the platform. I love doing the configuration for Paperless. It's one of my favorite parts of my day. And I really look forward to the hearing some of these questions and talking to some of the people that participated in terms of the what we discussed today. So thanks very much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.